Right, exactly, Jack. Jack, just you want to defend Donald Trump and wear the Donald Trump knee pads 24/7, but if Donald Trump is actually hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein and Epstein calls him his best friend,
you don't wipe your face. Can you just wipe that little thing off your face there a little bit? You got a little,
hold on a
mud on your face.
Okay.
You have no points.
Hold on a second.
No points, huh?
Can I add something?
You got
First of all, I hear the MAGA bullshit detector going off every single time Jack opens his mouth. But yet we have Jeffrey Epstein on tape calling Donald Trump his best friend.
You heard of Alexander Acosta, the Florida district attorney who was? Have you heard of Alexander Acosta? You know who that is?
You're like, oh, I got it. Look at me, like I'm the guy from Third Eye.
You know who Alexander Acosta is? You were duped.
Well, it's something. It's very upsetting. It's extremely upsetting to be brought in something like this, to think that you're going in to a situation where, hey, we're finally going to get some of these answers that we all want. Because at the end of the day, this is all about getting justice for the victims here, the actual victims. And I keep going back and looking over the different pieces of this story. You know, what was Prince Andrew disgraced for? Why did he go up on this huge interview and then lose all of his titles and all that? And he's losing his security now, I hear. And you know, why did we go all the way around? You know, name after name after name. But at the end of the day, it's actually about the victims. And do you really mean to tell me that all of those victims were questioned and all of the things that they said were investigated and were run down? Because it just doesn't really feel like that's been done here.
You were duped.
Out of his.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so this debate, we're going to get deep off into the Epstein stuff, and we've got Jack Posobiec, who was one of the principal journalists that was summoned, if you will, to the White House to get phase 1 of the Epstein Files. And now that we've gotten phase 2, which was absolutely nothing, that you're a crazy conspiracy theorist, and now we're just getting, you know, the Biden administration talking points on this, I guess, that if you believe that Jeffrey Epstein was just a financier that blackmailed a bunch of world leaders into sleeping with underage girls, you're just crazy. And I don't know where we're getting all these ideas from, but this is going to be pretty good, y'all. Before we get into all this, y'all do me that big favor and smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new around here. We tend to cover news and politics. We read the news. We go over the manipulations of the corporate press, so y'all make sure and stay tuned for all of that. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can, and if you would be so inclined, I would appreciate it if you would look right below the video, right down there. Click that join button, sign up, become a member, help this channel explode and expand and grow so we can get bigger and bigger and bigger. But without any further ado, let's get into it, y'all.
We were all led down a train of thought that there was going to be all sorts of stuff coming out about this Epstein case, the files, the names, the lists, accountability, and then boom, it's all disappeared.
Yeah, Piers, I mean, this is, as we would say in the military, unsat, completely unsat from Attorney General Pam Bondi. And this line about there being files that are currently under seal in some criminal case, well, then great, let's go and get those unsealed as soon as possible. Look, I was brought to the White House under the pretense of a series of policy briefings that were going to be held, not just from the AG, but from, we had the vice president came in, the president came in, Bobby Kennedy came in. So we had a rotating series of people from the administration, Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, and then nobody told us prior to this that the Epstein Files would be anywhere even on the agenda for that day, and it was really sprung as a surprise to all of us. We get handed these binders, and then before we even have a chance to look into them, we're hauled out actually in front of the cameras that were all there because Prime Minister Keir Starmer was visiting the White House that day. And it just so happened that they were all in front of the West Wing. And by the time that we have the ability to actually go through them, well, lo and behold, we find out that it's all information that was completely already in the public domain. In fact, some of the information that was in the public domain was more extensive than what was given to us on that day. So the whole thing, obviously, I think, as you say, is a cock-up. I hope I'm using that phrase correctly. I'm not entirely familiar with it, but that certainly feels like what happened here. And we don't have the accountability that was spoken of. We don't have the releases that were spoken of. And it's indefensible. It's indefensible that the answers aren't there when so much was promised.
Brian Shapiro, I mean, look, it's perfectly possible. Indeed, it looks increasingly likely that Epstein did indeed just commit suicide. What is not perfectly possible, to my cynical eye about this, is that he was the only person other than Ghislaine Maxwell, who's been imprisoned, who was ever up to criminal activity on his island and other places. It just stretches credulity. But nobody, it seems, is ever going to be held accountable other than him, who evaded accountability by dying, killing himself, or Ghislaine Maxwell, a woman. So none of these other men who were linked to this are ever going to be even remotely held accountable. It's just disappeared.
Well, what I would say, Piers, first of all, when Haba did your show, where did she get that information from? Where did that come from back in February? I would also say to Pam Bondi, she lied on Fox News, or maybe she was telling the truth. She said she had a list that was on her desk, Piers. Where did that list go? Was she lying? Was that made up? And I'd also say, thirdly, and I know this is something that Jack probably doesn't want to bring up, but the fact of the matter is that Jeffrey Epstein's on audio saying at one point Donald Trump was his best friend. We also know that Donald Trump was on the Epstein flight log 7 times. We learned that in the Maxwell case. So I don't think it's a stretch to say maybe Donald Trump might be somewhere in these files. Maybe. We don't know that for sure. But I know if it was the other way around, and if it was Joe Biden that was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein at one point, that's all Jack and MAGA Republicans would be talking about. I think Donald Trump is on this list, and I think Donald Trump is in these files, and I think the Trump administration is hiding something.
I mean, what is extraordinary, I think, Brian, is that it all seems to have gone incredibly quiet from the moment Elon Musk started dragging Trump's name into the Epstein case when they fell out in posts on his X platform. And he's carried on overnight doing more posts, not directly linking the president, but saying what the hell has happened here effectively. But he was the one that ignited the Trump link again. You do wonder, is that involved here? Is Trump basically thought this is just going to be a lot of bad publicity here, let's just get rid of it?
Yeah, well, I'll say this, Piers. Anytime somebody says something about Donald Trump that might not be true, Trump always threatens a lawsuit. Why is it that Donald Trump didn't threaten to sue Elon Musk when Elon Musk said that Trump was all over the Epstein files? I find that to be very, very interesting. Bill Maher could call Donald Trump the son of an orangutan, and then Trump will file a lawsuit about that. Why wouldn't he file a lawsuit against Elon? Maybe Elon is telling the truth, and maybe Elon knows some things that the general public does not know. I tend to believe Elon on this one.
It is a sad state of logic when that is your argument right there. Oh, well, he hasn't sued Elon Musk, so it must be true. Like, come on, are you kidding me with that? Like, Donald Trump hasn't sued 1,000 journalists who have smeared Donald Trump for the past freaking 10 years. There's a lot of journalists that he hasn't sued. There's a lot of pundits that he hasn't sued, and they have said much worse things, much, much more applicable pejoratives to Donald Trump than what Elon Musk said right here. Like, come on, let's not pretend or beat around the bush. This is the U.S. government we're talking about here, and I got 2 points, and then we'll move on. First point. Biden was in control for 4 years, and they had control of those files. They could have released that when they were going after Donald Trump, trying to throw everything, including the kitchen sink, plus everything else that wasn't included with the kitchen sink, at Donald Trump. So much to the point where they had to make up charges to throw at Donald Trump. Do you really think that if they would have this treasure trove of evidence that, tied Jeffrey Epstein to Donald Trump, you think they would have just said, yeah, I don't think we're going to go with this. Yeah, let's not go with this. Yeah, we'll just leave this private. Second point on that, okay, like I said, this is the United States government we're talking about here. They've had control of those files for several months now. Why wouldn't they just take and omit everything that pertained to Donald Trump out of the files and then release the files? Once again, there's all these conspiracy theories out there about, there's all these powerful leaders involved. And I've said this before, it would be so damaging to the economy if all these top elites just got caught up in this thing, were taken down, charged, and thrown in jail, and blah, 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 that it would damage the economy possibly because of all these people falling all at once, right? And all these heads of these major companies going down. But don't you think they could just omit some of these people from the files and then release the files? Like, there's something in here. It's either something in here that is so damaging that they just don't want to release it, like it implicates the federal government here, or there's nothing there. It's like, I don't want to go with it's nothing there, because there's way too much evidence. Plus, we've already had government officials, Elena Habba, Pam Bondi, they've already, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, they come out and said, it's shocking. When the files come out, you're going to be shocked. You're going to be blown away. And they're building up all this just to give us nothing. Something fishy is going on here, and nobody's going to be able to pin down exactly what it is until we actually get the evidence. And then even at that point, once again, you go back to what I was just arguing. Well, they could just omit whatever the hell they want to omit out of the files and make it look like it was never omitted, because they are essentially the source of the information. So they could just put it together in such a way that we'll never know the difference, folks. It is what it is. We just don't know, and it's really, really frustrating to sit here and speculate on why they're not giving up the files. But to say that, oh, well, Donald Trump doesn't want to release it because he's in it, I don't think so. I mean, sure, he's referenced in the files from the lawsuits, I believe it was the Ghislaine Maxwell lawsuit. He was referenced in the investigations. But it was just a simple reference, like they were simply asking some of the victims, was Donald Trump, did he ever show up on the island? And they all said no. There you go. Let's keep going.
Talking of Elon Musk, Brian, just to bring you in again here. So Musk is now simultaneous to all this. Obviously, this flame out with Trump is gathering momentum. He's now announced the launch of a new political party, the America Party. Third parties have had, a few instances in modern American history. They never tend to get very far, but we've never had the richest and most successful businessman in history launching one who's got $300 billion and happens to own one of the biggest social media platforms on which he has 200 million followers. He's not just your average third-party guy, is he? How interesting is this, and how damaging could this be, particularly to Donald Trump and the Republicans?
I think it certainly hurts Republicans and Donald Trump more than Democrats. But I would also say what you mentioned, this is the richest man in the world. With money comes a lot of power. This has been tried in the past many a times, but it hasn't been tried with someone with the money and the power that Elon Musk has. But I think the question we need to ask ourselves now is this just another phase that Elon Musk is going through? And then when this blows over, if it ever does, between him and Donald Trump, will he just move on? Or is he really, truly serious about this? There are a lot of people that didn't think that he was ever going to buy Twitter, now X, and he ended up doing that. So, will he do this? Will he continue this? And in 6 months from now, will we still be talking about this? I would venture to guess probably so. It sounds to me like Elon Musk is serious, and this will be very damning, in my opinion, to plenty of MAGA Republicans out there.
Yeah, and Adam, what this all seems to center around is that he was brought in, obviously, to run Doge, to reduce government overspending and waste. And at the same time, Trump was launching the big, beautiful bill, which many people think is going to add trillions to the debt. The two were clearly incompatible bedfellows. And that's led to Musk going. Now, Trump talks about EV car mandates being one of the catalysts for the falling out or whatever. But it's probably as simple as one person wanted to slash government spending and the other one wanted to bring in policies which are highly likely, certainly in the short to midterm, to increase the national spending and debt. So there's the clash. How serious do you think this is going to get?
I don't think you should understate the extent to which Jared Isaacman, the NASA candidate, being slashed, also pissed Elon Musk off.
Right.
He was really mad about Jared Isaacman. What I find funny about all of this is that Elon Musk is now leveraging the same mechanisms that he used to get Trump elected just a few months ago to now start a third party designed to undermine Trump's coalition. So the attention economy that he has with Twitter, he's going to leverage that. The vast wealth, he's going to leverage that. As to the question of how serious this is, I actually disagree with Brian. I think in 6 months, Elon will be on to the next thing. He doesn't seem to have the steady hand needed in politics to carry through a long-term agenda, and we saw that with Doge.
Well, there might be another reason, which is that shares in Tesla are tanking, down 7%, I think, at the start of regular trading today. Now, that might just be a market reaction. It may recover, but certainly recent numbers for Tesla have not been good. John, what do you think of this? I mean, it's not an intelligence issue, but as an American, what do you feel about now the potential for a third party by somebody who's actually got the means to make it significant?
Well, it wasn't too long ago that Ross Perot was able to buy 30-minute blocks on literally every network to promote his own candidacy and got something like 19%, which was very, very respectable for an independent presidential candidate. But it didn't lead to anything. With Elon Musk, there's nothing behind it but money. There's nobody running in the state legislatures, nobody running for Congress and whatever it's called, the American Party or some silly name like that. There's nobody running for the local school board or the water commission that's going to be the roots of this new party. I think that this is just kind of a vanity project. And I have to agree that I think in 6 months, some shiny object is going to distract Elon Musk, and we're not going to even hear about this party anymore.
You know, sometimes I really wonder if these people even think about the talking points that they spew out on a nonstop basis. Like, what are we talking about right here? There's nobody running in local politics in this political party that hasn't been really created yet. It's just getting off the ground. There's nobody out there, so, it's just BS. What? Like, that's such a ridiculous idea of a brand new party that's not even fully fleshed out yet. And there's nobody running. Like, this is such a ridiculous idea. Look, I get it. The downstream effects, if Elon Musk can pull this off and actually create a third party that is viable and actually makes a difference in the political landscape inside the United States, which basically we're talking about federal politics here for the most part in Congress, there could be a lot of downstream ramifications from this, like all the way from just voting, how the votes fall, to the Speaker of the House. There's all kinds of political ramifications from this. If Elon Musk can pull it off, it could completely change how politics works within the United States. The question is, can he pull it off? Now, he's done pretty good with companies, but we're talking about political parties here. I think he could get a lot of people signed on board with that. You know, you would probably get a lot of libertarians and MAGA people maybe to move over to this new party or whatever. But honestly, the chances of a party like this working, and I kind of agree that it does seem like a vanity project to Elon Musk. He's just pissed off about the big, beautiful bill, and he's like, I'm just going to throw a tantrum and say screw it, because that's exactly what it seems like Elon Musk is doing right now. He's throwing a tantrum because of Congress, right? It's not because of Trump. That's where he's focusing his animosity, because the big, beautiful bill was Trump's agenda, supposedly, right? We can all agree to that. It was supposed to be Trump's agenda, but Congress comes in because Congress is the legislative branch, and they're the ones that write all this stuff up. They take Donald Trump's agenda and say, thank you very much. Now we're going to pervert this into oblivion. We're going to add a bunch of pork nonsense. And, you know, you want this for your district and you want this for your district. And we're going to give salt deductions so we can try to get some Democrats on board with this. It's like, what? Why is what I want to know. This was supposed to be mandatory spending. Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, so they can get their benefits. I understand, look, hey, all of the Medicaid stuff, love it. It's great. It's Trump's agenda stuff, right? All of the Medicare stuff, great. We don't need illegal aliens or criminal aliens on Medicare or Medicaid. These are good things. Plus, you know, most Americans don't like to subsidize, you know, people's way of life. SSRIs and all this other nonsense, hormone therapy for gender studies students, for crying out loud, because that's what a lot of this is going to. We don't want to fund all these things, so putting work requirements in will boot a lot of people from Medicare, Medicaid. Yes, these are good things. Able-bodied adults should not be on Medicare, government-subsidized health care. That's all I'm saying about that. But Congress comes in and just screws all this up. And that's what Elon Musk is pissed off, but he's just focusing his anger in the wrong direction. But let's keep going.
Jack, what do you feel about this? A lot of people on the MAGA side of Trump's support were pretty dubious about Elon Musk to start with. A lot of them thought, well, this guy was a Democrat, and now he's come over, and maybe he's just trying to buy his way into power, get Trump elected, and use that to benefit all his companies, which obviously do benefit and have benefited from that association. But now it's gone the other way, and he's clearly trying to punish Trump and punish Republicans in launching this third party. What do you feel about the politics going on here?
Well, I think the politics that everyone said, and I broadly agree with everyone's take so far on here. I think this is a way to put leverage on President Trump, to put leverage on the party as we go towards the elections and then determining the swing of things. Because, look, people are saying, what about the presidential race and Ross Perot? And certainly with the tight margins that we saw in the 7 swing states, you could play a role there. But look at the midterms right now. With congressional majority in the House being as small as it is, you would only need to flip a couple of seats, run a couple of spoiler candidates in a few of those tight races, and you could easily flip the House one way or the other. So what it does is right now, today, is buy him much more leverage than he even had before. And he can do that without even running a single candidate anywhere. And I think he'd be much more successful with a project like this at the state level, at the House level, and at the Senate level than at the presidential level. And he can do so quite immediately.
I mean, obviously, you've got a massive clash of two gigantic egos here, and people used to getting their own way. Do you think, I can't see them really making up from this? I mean, Trump called him a train wreck last night. Elon's been hammering away, dismissing his big, beautiful bill as a total disaster that will bankrupt the country. It's very hard to see how they make up here, isn't it, Jack?
Well, I would say never count anything out. I mean, you've seen President Trump be able to make friends or allies of rivals in the past, and he certainly has the ability to do so, sometimes even against the wishes of MAGA. But, that's certainly his prerogative. For Elon, absolutely, he's got a track record of moving from one thing to the other. But if he sees perhaps a path forward from a business perspective, look, keep in mind, he's still got to deal with the government in terms of a lot of the contracts for his companies, in terms of Department of Defense, in terms of NASA, in terms of Tesla. So he's going to need a lot of this going forward, and I think whether they like it or not, they're stuck together.
He was friends with Epstein. He'll be friends with Elon.
What was that?
He was friends with Epstein. I'm sure he can be friends with Elon Musk.
He actually helped Epstein be prosecuted. He was the only person who was involved, kicked him out of the Epstein. You know all this. Like, it's just a very.
Have you heard of Alexander Acosta, the Florida district attorney who was?
Have you heard of Alexander Acosta? You know who that is? You're like, oh, I got it. Look at me. Like, I'm the guy from Third Eye.
Do you know who Alexander Acosta is? You were duped to cover up sexual abuse of children.
Donald Trump was kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. Donald Trump was the only one who went to investigators and said, I will
Pierce,
work
do you know
with
who Alexander
against
Acosta
Epstein.
is?
This has been litigated a million times.
Can I just add something here?
It's been litigated
First of all, Brian,
I'll
come to you, but Adam, just explain what you're talking about.
Yeah, really quickly. Alexander Acosta was a Florida district attorney. You can look this up. He knew both Trump and Epstein. He was appointed as a Secretary of Labor under Trump and had to resign in 2017 because people found out that he mishandled the Epstein case in 2007 and let Epstein get an illegal plea deal. Epstein was then able to go re-offend, and Trump appointed him in 2017. So I don't want to hear the dude that was brought to the White House to cover up sexual abuse saying that there was, what are you trying to say here? Yeah.
You gotta wipe your face. Can you just wipe that little thing off your face there a little bit? You got a little,
right, hold on a
mud on your face.
You have no points.
Hold on a second.
No points, huh?
Can I add something? First of all, I hear the MAGA bullshit detector going off every single time Jack opens his mouth. First of all, people like Jack were the people who called Joe Biden a pedophile for sniffing hair. But yet we have Jeffrey Epstein on tape calling Donald Trump his best friend. They were hanging out together constantly. I've spoken to Jeffrey Epstein's brother
do you want me
many
to go
times.
Through the list
they were
of
very
all the
close.
Democrats
I'm not done yet, Jack.
Piers, like,
Jack,
we can go through all this again, but Piers, I know you've done this
I'm not done yet. I didn't interrupt you.
You've been a real reporter on this. These guys just want to play politics. I'm trying to be serious here.
Jack,
dude, you were at the White House with Epstein Files in your hand.
Yeah, just talked about it.
Right, exactly, Jack. Jack, just you want to defend Donald Trump and wear the Donald Trump knee pads 24/7, but when it comes to a Democrat, they're all pedophiles. But if Donald Trump is actually hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein and Epstein calls him his best friend,
can you have like a source on that, bro?
No, because the Pam Bondi won't release the sources.
Actually, yeah, I do. The Maxwell trial, where it was learned that he was on the Epstein flight. Why don't you listen? It was in the trial, in the Maxwell trial, that he was on the flight log 7 times. We have Jeffrey Epstein on audio calling him his best friend. So here's my question to Jack. Jack, if Jeffrey Epstein was on audio...
And how many times did Jeffrey Epstein say that he was one of the founding members of the Clinton Institute?
I don't defend... Jack, if Jeffrey Epstein was on audio saying that Joe Biden was his best friend... that wouldn't concern you at all?
Man, these are
all
like
you do is deflect and you talk about other people.
Do you guys have anything new?
I mean, my line about the Epstein, but my line about the Epstein circle of famous friends is, to me, that there's a clear line before his initial conviction, which was a complete stitch-up in his favor, no question of that.
Jack, why won't they release the files then?
Well, hang on, Brian. Hang on, Brian. The point I'm going to make is, I do think if you continue to be a friend of Epstein, knowing he was a convicted pedophile after whatever it was, 2009 or so, as Prince Andrew did, for example, then I'm afraid that is seriously problematic. For those who were in his circle, a wide circle of well-known people, from Bill Gates to Trump to all these, Bill Clinton, I mean, he hooked in everybody, but a lot of them had nothing to do with him, including Trump, I believe, after that conviction. But if you carried on seeing him as Andrew did, living at his house for a few days, years later, knowing he was a convicted pedophile, that is different. I mean, do we agree?
Yes, I agree as well. It is very different. Those are two very, very different things. But, they keep bringing up, Trump is on the Epstein Files. And like I said earlier, the federal government, they could just omit Trump from all this, release the files and be done with it. Why don't they do that? That's a good question, right? We know Bill Clinton was involved. We know Bill Gates was involved. There's a lot of people that we suspect were involved, right? Or we believe were involved. And there's a lot of mysteriousness around this case. We just don't understand these things. We could speculate all day long, like I was saying earlier, as to why. But, the fact remains. Donald Trump was the only person that was implicated in all of this that actually played ball with investigators, totally invited them in, was completely cooperative with anything and everything that they did. So, I don't buy into it until I see some evidence that there was, like, heavily involvement, right? Sure, he may have been on the flight logs. Who cares at this point? We don't know anything. There's a lot of people that could have flown to the island and not did a damn thing, right? What we want, personally, I don't care about some client list or anything like that. I want heads to roll, personally. I want people to go down for this. If they were involved in any sort of untoward sexual proclivities with underage girls, yeah, let's have these people be held to account, for goodness sakes. That's all I'm asking for. I could care less about getting all the little details or anything like that. I don't care about none of that. I just want heads to roll. That's it. And I think most people out there would agree with that. We don't care about this. Sure, some people might want to see every person involved and how much they were involved, but I just want to see indictments. That's pretty much it. Let's keep going.
It's a confusing time to be in MAGA, isn't it? It must be, right? Because there's so much going on, which must be quite bemusing. You're led up the hill of we're going to get all the dirt on Epstein. That disappears. You've got the attack on Iran, which seems to fly in the face of everything Trump has said about foreign wars, foreign engagement, and so on. You've got a kind of war at the center of the party. You've got Elon Musk, who you were skeptical of, MAGA, and then he's the hero suddenly, and now he's the villain again. This is not an easy time for MAGA to get their heads around the consistent theme here.
Oh, Piers, what are you talking about? I love a fight. I'm always ready for a fight. And MAGA is always made of fighters. So if we got to fight, if we're coming. And by the way, Charlie Kirk is out there today saying that there's a huge push for amnesty of these, the farm workers. And this was something that was mentioned at the rally over the weekend in Iowa, or I guess just before the weekend in Iowa. And so, look, if there's going to be a fight, then we're more than ready for a fight. And I know that I certainly am. And I'm not going.
But don't you have to know what you're really fighting for?
I'm fighting for the country. I'm fighting for America first.
No, I get that. But are you fighting for deportations
yes.
of every illegal immigrant in the United States, if that means
yes.
that farms close all over the United States, for example?
Yes, it is 100% across the board. When we were at the RNC in Milwaukee, we had mass deportations now signs. And by the way, that doesn't necessarily mean that they all need to be arrested. And I know that people have been crunching the numbers and saying, oh, you know, if you do this many arrests a day and that many, I think that self-deportations are something that really need to be worked on. I think the remittance tax that went through in the big, beautiful bill should have been higher. 1% is too low in my estimation. I think that should be 5%, 10%, or even 50%, because in some of these cases, that's exactly what's going on, is that they're here for economic reasons in the United States. And so if you put that,
but doesn't the United States economy need a lot of them? I mean, isn't this the whole point about the farmer debate, is that actually farmers have gone to Trump in big numbers and said, if you deport every illegal, undocumented worker in the country, we're out of business.
Well, look, you know, there can be a way for this to be done in a phased manner where they can get people in, and over time, it's not like it has to be, we're going to snap our fingers overnight and they're going to be gone, but absolutely, over time, 100%.
Brian, what do you think of that? I mean, it seems to me that Trump's had a lot of political wins. Whatever you think of him, the last 3-4 weeks, you could argue have been the most successful politically that he may have had as a president. But it seems like on a lot of these issues, there's this dilemma which he's going to have to confront, and not least, I think, this issue of undocumented workers.
Well, it's interesting because Jack says MAGA is fighting for the country. So is fighting for the country giving the biggest tax breaks to the top 1% in the history of the nation? Is fighting for the country not giving people due process and people that have been living in this country for decades, and ICE agents coming up to them, not identifying themselves, ripping them from their families right outside of the courtroom? They're trying to do the right thing, or sending people to El Salvador prisons with no criminal record. That's fighting for the country, while Donald Trump is doing this weird masturbation dance on July 4th when dozens of kids are missing in Texas. That's fighting for the country, Jack? No, I'm sorry. That's the opposite of fighting for the country, okay? You know exactly what dance I'm talking about, Jack. I'm sure you do it every night before you go to sleep. Yeah, I think you do, Jack. I think you do, Jack. But the point that I was
go to sleep, man.
Okay, well, the point that I was trying to make, Jack, is you said that MAGA Republicans are fighting for the country, deporting people and ripping up parts of the Constitution.
Part of my country, and in short work, they won't be, because those aren't Americans; those are illegals.
So they don't deserve due process? What does it say in the Constitution? It says every single person, not citizen, not non-citizen. The Constitution says
subject
every
to the jurisdiction
person. Okay,
It says subject to the jurisdiction.
Okay, so you think that
legal aliens are not
so someone should be deported to it?
We actually went through
you're
this last
okay
time
with
we were
people
here.
being?
You don't have any new.
So you're okay with someone being Yeah, no, it's not a talking point. It's called reality, Jack. You don't live in reality. You live in MAGA world, and you take the Ben Shapiro talking points.
They're all going home.
No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. Oh, they're all going home. So you're okay. Go ahead, Adam.
I was going to say, can I ask if we had studies proving, which we do, that these farm workers lead to increased economic output, would you still want to deport illegal farm workers? How is that putting America first when it hurts the economy?
Wow, it's
Pierce said,
amazing
farm
that
workers
we're
are coming
the
to Trump.
Democrats say, "Oh, you're just going on the side of big ag and big corporations." Like here, I'm the MAGA guy, and I'm the one who's saying,
You're not
"Let's do
answering my
something
question.
for the
How is
working
that
class
helping
of
the
this country.
economy
Let's do something
if
for
it's
the
less
middle class."
economic
But man,
output?
you guys just love kissing the boots of big corporate America, huh?
No, I like the economy.
What are you
I like having
talking
more
about?
economic output. And
How does
when we
the
have
boot
studies
leather
saying,
taste? Wall Street, the Wall Street boot leather,
this
the
isn't
corporate
about
America
Jack.
boot leather.
Do you know
How
what
does
I
it
would have
taste?
done if I was Trump? I'd have taken a massive victory lap over the stunning success in the southern border, reducing the numbers coming over illegally to almost negligible numbers from the millions that came in under Biden. I'd have taken a massive victory lap, which
Jack.
would have been applauded by, I think, most Americans. And then I would have targeted the people who were in the country illegally who committed crimes. And and that was the first thing he said, I remember, as a campaign thing. When you get to a wider category of people and you simply say we're going to deport everyone who's undocumented in America, I mean, you could potentially be looking at 100 million people. Nobody really knows, right?
Wouldn't that be something?
But the idea that won't rip the heart out of America's economy in industries like farming, I think is for the birds. So I just felt like Trump's got a big win. He's got a couple of big wins on immigration, right? Take the southern border win, deport the ones who commit crimes, and then move to a new reform of the whole immigration system, but not at the expense of industries like farming. John, you're nodding there.
Yeah, Piers, there's a middle ground here. In early 2001, the Bush administration, the George W. Bush administration, negotiated an agreement with the government of Mexico that would address much of this. All of the Mexican workers who were here illegally, who were undocumented, would have to go back to Mexico. They could file papers asking permission to obtain a 9-month visa that would allow them to come here, work, pay taxes, and then go back to Mexico for 3 months. And they would have to go through this process every year. That way, they were legal to come and work, continue the jobs that they had, pay taxes, and go back. That was scuttled because of the 9/11 attacks. But I think that's the basis, that should be the basis for something that the Trump administration can negotiate with Latin American governments right now.
You know, a lot of times you got to take the Democratic position on these issues like this, especially when it comes to criminal aliens, and you got to think about it for a minute. When you boil everything down, right, what Democrats are advocating for is second-class citizenry. That's what they want. And they use all these emotional arguments, and they tug on your heartstrings over here to try to get you to feel sorry for these. Oh, the economy's going to be damaged. The sky is falling because of Donald Trump's immigration policies. That's what they want. They want second-class citizens, because criminal aliens, they want them to come into the country and work and live for a better life. But they don't have any say in any elections. They don't get to vote. They don't voice their opinions on any of these things. They don't get the same benefits in the workplace that you and I get. They don't get all the civil rights that you and I get, regardless of what they'll tell you. They'll tell you, oh, no, they get all the rights under the Constitution, every person. But that's not true when you look into it. They don't get all the civil rights. They can be deported expeditiously at almost any point for any reason. Just about, right? So they don't. That's what Democrats are advocating for. Now, we know that we fought a civil war over slavery, and now Democrats, having lost that war, have changed their position. Oh, well, we can't do slavery, so we'll do the next step in the evolution of slavery is second-class citizenry. We want a serf class to come in and clean our bathrooms and pick the crops and do all this and stuff that American citizens don't want to do. Well, I wonder why. Hang on just a second. What do you mean American citizens don't want to do these jobs, right? Like, we have a quite large homeless population. I think they would probably be quite happy with some of these jobs if they paid well. We've got a Gen Z problem in this country where these people can't find good jobs, good paying jobs, and I wonder why that is. Maybe that's because criminal aliens are coming in and working for really, really low wages in a lot of cases, no benefits, no paid time off, no paid holidays, no sick leave, none of that stuff. You think Gen Z is going to get out there and go pick the crops for low wages and no benefits? That's what criminal aliens in the workplace have created. They have created second-class citizenry that doesn't get paid like you and I do. I don't think that's a very good thing to advocate for, and that's what Democrats are advocating for when it comes to this issue. And I find it insufferable and disgusting, to be honest with you. These people should be getting the benefits, right? And it wouldn't be hard to give these people green cards, but you still have the problem. The problem still remains, right? They're still not getting the benefits. They're still not getting everything that you and I would get, and the civil rights, all of that stuff. Still not getting any of these things. Once again, they always say the immigration system is broken. I don't think that's the case, folks. I think the immigration system works exactly how it was supposed to. We only allow a certain amount of people to come in at a time because they've got to melt into the pot. And as we know, with the analogy, through cooking, it takes time for things to melt into the pot. There you go. It's right there. It's all in plain writing. All right, do these people deserve to come into the country and work? Sure. They pay taxes. But that's the problem with a lot of this. These people, these illegals coming in, they don't pay taxes, folks. They don't buy into Social Security. They don't buy into Medicaid. But Democrats are advocating and say, oh, the sky is falling. You know, the government subsidized healthcare sky is falling because Donald Trump wants to take all these criminal aliens off of Medicare, Medicaid. Yeah, that's what's happening. And they'll tell you, oh, well, that's just a Republican talking point. It's fake news. It's propaganda. Well, that's not. Because they get subsidized through state Medicare or Medicaid in blue states, sanctuary states or whatever, and hang on to. So you might think, well, that's not the federal government. The federal government doesn't pay for any criminal aliens because it's illegal. Hate that argument. We'll get into that. But yeah, come to find out that the state's Medicare and Medicaid is subsidized. Oh, they get reimbursed by the federal government. So criminal aliens technically, indirectly get federal subsidized government health care. Yes, as a matter of fact. And that whole argument about, oh, it's illegal. Yeah. When has that ever stopped a criminal from committing a crime? Like, laws do not prevent crime. I'm sorry. That's a consequence. And what do? What are consequences? You pay the Pied Piper, for crying out loud. So when you hear all those talking points, that's the result. That's what Democrats are advocating for, and I find it disgusting. But, I think there's a solution to every problem, like that guy was talking about with the middle ground. Maybe we could get a bus to go around and give these people work visas or something like that. Then they'd be in the country legally, for goodness sakes. That's all we're asking for. That's all at least I'm asking for, is to get rid of the people that are in the country illegally, get them out of the country, or give them legal status to work in the country. If it's just workers, right? Like, I understand. I can sympathize with the idea that you've got this employee, or, in some cases, thousands of employees that have been working at these farms and these restaurants and all these places for decades, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever it may be. They've been working in the country. They've been doing their thing. They just go to work, go home, pay their bills, blah, blah, blah. Look, I can sympathize with that idea. But the problem with that is, why haven't these people tried to get a visa? Why haven't they tried to become legal residents of this country? It's not that hard, right? Sir, citizenship might be a little bit difficult to obtain. Sure, I get that. But legal status is not that difficult to attain, and it doesn't take that long. Why haven't they tried to do this? That's a question you must ask yourself. Right, we got to look at all aspects of all this, but I think I've rambled on for long enough. Y'all don't forget to smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you liked what you saw. Share this video all over the place with anybody and everybody, all at the same time, everywhere, if that's even possible. And y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.